Welcome to Global Health and Wellness Practitioners YouTube channel, where we're giving exposure and connecting great practitioners while providing a platform for them to leave a message and a piece of their legacy on. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're speaking to Joan Cheka. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
And she is a pediatric physical therapist and a board certified pediatric clinical specialist. And she's been holding and participating in different, on the side of her career, she's been participating and holding women's circles since 2003. So today we're going to be speaking about women's empowerment. And if you could add anything else to your introduction.
I'm 61. I have 3 grown children. I've been treating women and families for 30 years. Oh my God, 30 years now. Oh, I love what I do. And I have been rooted and even further rooted in women's communities.
I've met Joan at Daughters of the Earth in Massachusetts at a big women's gathering of over 100 women. And gosh, I don't even remember meeting you exactly.
Well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to jump off on that because that Daughters of the Earth gathering, which we did not know at the time, was going to be the last time that the Daughters of the Earth, which is run by Elisa Starkweather. And at that time, I had been participating in women's communities, like Where Women Gather, with my daughter, and in like popcorned all over the place. But when I went to Daughters of the Earth, I saw everyone from different communities, from different places, all in one place. And it was a really, really powerful weekend. That was where, because I've always, when it comes to my own healing and strength, I've always imagined myself as a woman in a tree. I have asthma, so if I needed to breathe, I would go and put my back against a tree and join with it would be like my chest wall would then be included in the tree and the space. And so there was always this, I think I was born with this deep connection to the land. And I'm a tree hugger lover. But it was at that weekend at Daughters of the Earth, I first met Elisa Starkweather. I met leaders, I mean, really big time, powerful leaders from all over the place who were participating in women's communities. And I was just not blown away. I saw the image, which now sustains me, that we're all in the roots. There's that song, in the roots, in the roots, in the roots, we are together. That as women or as a community, that we were like rooted deeply at our roots. We're communicating with each other, even though our trunks were separate and our branches and our trees and our individual. And as I have to tell you, as a result of that weekend, I was inspired to participate in Elisa Starkweather's Priestess Path. I was Gen 15, and that was a 2-year process. And I just want to say a little bit about those who don't know Elisa Starkweather. She is a poet and visionary. She's a founder of Daughters of the Earth. She's the founder of She Loves Life. She's also a student of Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD, who is a Jungian psychoanalyst and explores ethno-clinical psychology, a diversity scholar, and post-trauma recovery specialist at the Institute for Archetypical and Cross-Cultural Studies. And Elisa was her student. And I had the privilege of participating in this mystery school. It was transformational work. What happens in the container stays in the container. But Priestess Path, that 2-year process, explored themes on racism, classism, and connection to feminine power and energy. All that I saw at Daughters of the Earth that weekend.
Yeah.
It really was a women's spiritual leadership odyssey that traverses through archetypical realms, ceremonies, and skill building. And at that time, I was already running a community red tent in the basement of my home. And Elisa brought it all together for me. But I think when I became a mother, my first community was the Brooklyn La Leche League. I was home. I had had the transformation of becoming a mother. I was nursing, and I enjoyed that mother to support. And then just when I moved to New Jersey, these women's circles, I just recognized, I started recognizing it. And I began running a community. Let me backtrack. A friend of mine had done a menarche ritual for her daughter and had invited me to attend. And I'd never seen it. I'd never seen a family welcome and celebrate the beginning of menstruation, the ritual of, I'm Catholic, our ritual of coming of age is confirmation. And this was a ritual of menarche that was filled with just beautiful ceremony and transition, transition from girl to woman. Just like as mothers, we transition from, a daughter dies and a mother is born. And I thought, this is it. This is it. This is, as a Catholic, one of the things that's endearing and enduring about the Catholic Church is, one, that God has a mother, and the Holy Family. And it is one of the last places where the goddess still exists in Christianity, in the sense that Mary is more than prominent. There is a divinity to Mary. The goddess exists, even though she is not in her prominent place. But even between Catholicism and Protestantism, the role of Mary is defined differently. Mary is Hail Mary, full of grace. Full of grace means that Mary was the ladder upon which God crawled down to earth and birthed a God. Those are really, really powerful images, and they are very, in Protestantism, Mary is Hail Mary, highly favored. Now, if you chase down the theology, there is a huge difference between highly favored and full of grace. Full of grace is a moral authority. Full of grace is with God. I mean, when Saint Joan was being prosecuted, her inquisitors tried to trip her up because they asked her, "Do you believe that you're in a state of grace?" And there was no way to answer that, because had she said yes, she would be committing the sin of presumption by presuming to be with God. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And if she said no, then she was separate from God and therefore outside of the Catholic Church. So they presented this, I don't know how old she was, 17, 18, 19-year-old young woman with this question designed to trap her. And she, I'm just telling this story just to give you a sense of the definition of grace. Grace, goddess, God, when God was a woman, grace. So she answered, if I am in a state of grace, may God keep me there. And if I am not in a state of grace, may he bring me there. So she sort of, well, we all know how that story ends. So So that is Catholicism for me. It's endearing and enduring. But of course, I was by this time, especially after becoming a mother, looking through the lens of the womb, looking through the lens of the divine feminine. And she's there, she's everywhere. I had the privilege of going to Italy, and she is everywhere. I mean, you walk into the cathedrals of Europe, and Mary is the goddess is everywhere in all her glorious and bloody stolen materials to express her image forms, in the forms of statues, art. So I had gone to Where Women Gather, inspired by that menarche ritual, with all of this resonating. And it happened to be Where Women Gather is structured with the triple goddess, which are the three stages of a woman's life: maiden, mother, and crone. And that happened to be a maiden year. I was there with my 12-year-old daughter. And so they were celebrating the maiden, and they were having large menarche rituals for girls who were coming of age. And Saturday night in that ritual, the elders addressed, the old woman addressed the girls. And this woman, and it's seared in my memory. It has been part of my red tent. I keep mentioning, and I'll get to that I ran a community red tent in my home. And she said to the girls, "We are the keepers of the gateway of life. And you are the keepers of the gateway of life. And you, and only you, decide who, when, and under what circumstances that gate is entered. And that it is entered with great joy." And I thought, that's it. Women are so undervalued in our society. I mean, I can't even address that. That's a subject that's just way too big.
Yeah.
It's just way too big, big political, it's you spend a lifetime. But this is what I wanted for my daughter. I wanted her to feel the value that I didn't feel as a girl. I wanted her to feel the awe and the wonder of the fact that, the blood mysteries that are celebrated in Red Tent, that the fact that women bleed is the only reason that any human being ever walks this earth. I mean, that is of enormous value. How is it that we became second-class citizens? How is it that the feminine was not recognized as creation? Because we are creation. And one of the rituals that I had the privilege of witnessing and participating in at Where Women Gather, done by Beverly Little Thunder, it is of her tradition, her sweat lodge, is the balance actually of the sweat lodge and the symbolism of the sweat lodge, because the sweat lodge is the womb. You're actually entering the womb. And the process of even going into the sweat lodge before you begin is that you place your forehead on the ground and you say, you greet grandmother. You say, "Hello, grandmother. I enter you with honor and respect." So the concept is there. You're entering the divine feminine with honor and respect. And then there's the fire outside and the fire tenders and the fire keepers. Now, this is my perception. This is my experience. I do not claim to be a water pourer or a fire tender. I have just had the privilege of benefiting from those women who do that work, so that I can participate in the healing resulting from the work that a woman like Beverly Little Thunder does, or Sappho, who was firekeeper at Where Women Gather. But the symbolism of the lodge, which contained a balance, which was the divine feminine and the divine masculine. You had grandmother lodge and grandfather sky, fire. The stones coming into the lodge, the symbolism of that is obvious. The sun seed coming into the womb and blessing and
warming
and growing and birthing. Coming out of the lodge feels like birthing. Coming out of the lodge wet and naked and pulled into the arms of women in ritual, participating in the sacred. So I live in suburban New Jersey. My husband had built a red tent for me in the basement. Um, and once a month, the emails would go out. Anyone who wanted to show up could. It was just like the Moon Lodge. There's so many stories around that, and everybody else tells them better than I do. But the idea of, as women, we cycle. So once a month, we would come together. We would sit in this womb space, which is covered, it's all red, and there's raspberry, womb tea, raspberry leaf tea, chocolate, strawberries, and we would do a check-in. And it was a time to just disconnect from your responsibilities, from your caretaking, to just sit and be with each other. And in red tent, in women's circles, particularly red tent, if you happen to be flooded with feeling or going through a hard time or in pain, and red tent, it was perfectly acceptable to just ask and be invited in and put your head on another woman's lap and just cry and not tell anybody why you're crying. It didn't matter. It was just you needed to be held.
Nurtured.
Nurtured.
As the nurturer in our families.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just the model of caring for each other, of connection. We were not meant to live in isolation. This is the way we were meant to live: is to just sit and gather and refill our cups, the same way we kept refilling our tea, and the girls.
Yeah.
The girls, the women, the babies, the girls, the women, the old women.
The elderly being respected and held.
Yeah.
Honored for their lives that they've already lived.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, the piece of work that's been done, and it's on YouTube, that tells the story better than I could or you could here, is Isadora Liedenfrost's Things We Don't Talk About, and it's the Red Tent movie. Yeah, there is a Red Tent movie, which is the series done on PBS based on the Anita Diamant books, The Red Tent. But we're talking about Isadora Liedenfrost's movie, Things We Don't Talk About, which was her PhD project on the Red Tent. And it's interesting. It was she did a premiere of it at Where Women Gather, and Elisa Starkweather was in that movie. Many women that I came to know later and saw at Daughters of the Earth participated in that movie, which it allows you to go inside a red tent. It allows you to see what this is all about and what it feels like and how simple it can be to create it, from the simplest gathering to the most elaborate gathering, depending on bandwidth. And I remember when it finished, I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is a PhD project. What did she study? Was it women's studies? Was it psychology? Was it religion? I was that was my burning question. Yeah. And I raised my hand and I said, what did you study? What did you get your PhD in? And textiles. Her PhD project was the use of textiles in creating this sacred space.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
It's a gorgeous piece of work, and I really, really recommend anybody. It's as a matter of fact, I asked my husband to sit down and watch it with me. And he was so inspired by it that's what inspired him to build the red tent for me downstairs.
Oh, wow.
And he felt pulled by the intimacy, by the that was created inside the red tent, that place where we can put our pedestrian selves aside and enter into sacred space and time in a way that's really lighthearted. I mean, It's a beautiful movie.
I just have to mention too, with all the women's empowerment, when I first went to my first Daughters of the Earth, I was very super conscious to hear if there was any man bashing, or
Yeah.
because I feel like we should hold the divine feminine up as well as the divine masculine. So if you want to speak on that a little bit.
Oh, I am completely right there with you, which is why the lodge is such a powerful symbol, because the divine feminine and masculine are together. And also, I'm the mother of sons, and the idea of women being a moral authority or up on a pedestal sort of adds to an unrealistic, view or balance, like neither idealizing or demonizing. And well, quite frankly, I'm not interested in any circle that bashes anybody, and I remember when I was a young mother in Brooklyn, and I had little boys, and we would go on the playground, and if my son took a swing, because this was typically male behavior of like perceived male behavior, like of running through the playground and just being wild, and if a child bumps into somebody or hurts someone, me coming over to my son to point that out, and the mother of the daughter saying, "Oh, well, boys will be boys." And I remember without missing a beat saying, my boy is just as capable of learning decency as your girl is.
Mm.
All of the passes around gender, all of the perceptions around gender. But no, I will not tolerate male bashing. It hurts us.
Yeah. And I was so excited that I didn't hear any of it. It was all about just empowering all of us and empowering our roles as women in the world.
Right. Or even our roles as women, or the role of the divine feminine and how it expresses itself in all of us, including the divine masculine. And how the divine masculine resonates with me.
Right.
Or how the divine feminine resonates with me or my husband or my sons or my daughter.
It was really a sacred container that I really appreciated.
Me too. It's a very healing container.
Joan, is there anything that you would like to share with everybody? Some inspiration or?
I'm going through a major change myself right now. And my mantra every day is, when I feel unsteady, or if I feel like the ground is moving underneath my feet and I don't have a place to stand, is everything I ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Mm.
When everything I ever wanted is on the other side of fear. I mean, that's how I ground myself. Everything I ever wanted is on the other side of fear. Everything I ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And I take the next step. And I also know that big goals, like my board certification, I just completed last year. And that was one of those goals. The really, really big ones, no matter what your goal is, the really, really big ones that feel really scary, have embedded in them a potential to fail. A potential to fail, to not get it done, to have it be so big that you have the potential to fail at it. Those are the really big ones. Those are the really scary ones, And yeah, Eleanor Roosevelt said it better. You must do the things you think you cannot do. You must do the things you think you cannot do and be excellent instead of perfect. Because excellence is taking on those things where you might actually fail, make a mistake. Perfectionism is really limiting, because you're limited to, you put closure on where you're at right now. And you will only do what you know you can complete. popping out of that and doing what has the potential to not be complete, but offers growth. And that's transformation. And that could be anything from seeing a relative that you haven't seen in a long time that you need to reconcile with, going for a doctorate, a clinical doctorate, starting a new job. So I'm going to end where I started. Everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
So thank you for all your wisdom and sharing your experiences in life with all the women, all the circles. And
thank you for letting me come and talk. I mean, I miss being in circles. I miss talking about things that matter.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful. I had fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm sure you got something from this, and reach out to Joan if ever you feel the need to, and hopefully we'll be in community soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.